Hello, this is the front desk.
Good morning and welcome to another episode of the Crackin Backs Podcast with their hosts Dr. Terry Wyman and Dr. Spencer Barron. How you doing this morning, guys?
It's a good day.
Great, Lance.
That's great to hear. So today we are joined by Tyson Dever. For over a decade, Tyson has been sharing from stages across the nation about his story of overcoming his horrific accident that left him paralyzed, and how he's not held back in his mission to teach others the lessons he learned, overcoming adversity and the grit of never giving up. How are you doing this morning, Tyson?
I'm good. Appreciate you guys having me this
It's
morning.
great to hear.
You know, we're just going to start off just so you set the stage for those listening. March 11th of 2005 changed your life. So can you just quickly tell us what happened on that day?
Yeah, I mean, it was just a normal day. You know, I'm a college kid at Texas State University in San Marcos. It's the day we get out for spring break. Like most college kids, I'm going to the beach for spring break. So I'm going to go pick up my girlfriend at her house before we head down that way. And I'm on a 2-lane road in the right-hand lane waiting on oncoming traffic so that I can make a left-hand turn into her neighborhood. And behind me is a single cab truck, and like most cars do when they get tired of waiting, it goes around on the bar ditch and on the shoulder of the road and gets back in front of me. But when he went around me, it's what came behind him that caused everything. And a fully loaded concrete truck traveling close to 70 miles an hour. Whether he didn't see me, his brakes failed, he's texting and driving, or eating a cheeseburger, I don't know. But he hit my car from behind and went completely over the top of it and knocked me into oncoming traffic where I was hit again by a Nissan Xterra coming the other way. So I actually got hit twice and still 100% conscious, trapped inside this burning car, doing everything I can to get out, and I'm not going anywhere. And as fate would have it, that day across the street was an elementary school, Elm Grove Elementary. They happened to be having fire day that day. So outside on break is a fire truck and an ambulance. They see and hear the wreck happen, and they immediately called Starflight. They knew how bad it was. They called Starflight. Starflight left the hospital, got to the scene, loaded me up, and took me back. And from the second my wreck happened until I landed at Brackenridge Hospital in downtown Austin, Texas, was 14 minutes. And that's about an hour drive if you're going to drive it. So just an incredible line of events that had to happen in order for me to survive that. It paralyzed me at the waist, at T12, severed my spinal cord. So it's hard to see in a video or on a podcast, but I'm sitting here in a wheelchair and will be for the rest of my life because of this distracted driver or whatever he was driving this concrete truck. And I mean, that's the event that happened on March 11th that has completely changed my life.
Tyson, it's almost odd to say that you got lucky, that you had, the way the circumstances, short of death. I mean, I think it's amazing what you've done for yourself as far as physically and mentally. And there are a lot of stages to that, especially from the beginning to now. What was the hardest stage for you?
I mean, the biggest thing and the most difficult thing for me to get through was just simply getting comfortable in my own skin again. You know, I'm 22 years old. I'm a college athlete, just got done playing college baseball, 6 foot tall. All of a sudden, boom, this car wreck happens. Now you're 4 foot tall and rolling around in a wheelchair. That puts a pretty big hit on a 22-year-old's ego. So hands down, the hardest, most difficult thing that I had to do was just get comfortable in my own skin again. But, Spencer, you hit the nail on the head on that one. And I'm on stage and, in front of a lot of people these days. I'm a motivational speaker. And one of the things that I always say is I'm one of the lucky ones, right? There's a lot of people out there with stories and situations similar to mine where they didn't make it. I'm one of the lucky ones. So what I do from that point on, that's on me. That's my responsibility. And so that's what I try to do.
Was it a process to get through to that point? I mean, you don't automatically go, hey, I'm in a good place.
No, it's definitely a process. And, I've said from day one, I credit my parents for raising me right. They laid a foundation of determination and grit, and who you are as a person before adversity happens determines how you respond to that. But there's no doubt about it. I mean, this is a process. You don't just wake up one day and say, all right, I'm going to be good. I mean, the first thing I said when they told me I was paralyzed was, that's all right, I'll just go play wheelchair basketball. And that's good. That tells you your attitude's in the right spot, but it doesn't happen like that, right? It takes 2 to 3, 5 years, however long it takes for each person. Luckily for me, I bounced back pretty quick, but I mean, it's probably a couple years before you can go to the grocery store and not be concerned with who's watching you push a grocery cart and, just do minor things in life that you never had to think about before.
But okay, I'm going to ask you to just before the accident and the way, young, healthy, everything's functioning at 100%.
Yeah.
If you looked into a crystal ball or somebody told you that this was going to happen, what would you have said to yourself back then?
Ooh. I mean, the easy answer is I would say, let's go, but I don't know that until you're faced with that incident or that wreck, that traumatic event in your life. I don't know. I mean, if I could look into a crystal ball, it's hard for me to even wrap my mind around that, to be honest with you, because you can see a guy rolling in a chair like myself, but there is so much more to it than just that. And I had no idea what being paralyzed and in a wheelchair entailed until you get to rehab, and then you get out there and start trying to live life, and you're like, well, crap, how do I do dishes, and how do I cook, and how do I do laundry? I mean, all these things are stuff that you have to relearn how to do again. And that's just not something that I don't think we're wired to even think that way, until it happens. And I mean, it's either go ahead or give up. And fortunately for me, I chose to just keep pushing forward.
Well, it wasn't quite a trick question, but it was a reality check for those who are not conflicted in the same manner, or have been confronted with situations that are, death of a loved one or loss of limb or paralysis and what have you. But, like if I would ask Terry, if what would you think if that happened to you? And most people, it's like, this is just, from a psychological standpoint, would say, I would not be able to live my life. I wouldn't know what to do. But there's a phenomenon that occurs that has apparently happened for you, that it happened rapidly, all considering, and that is, they call it impact bias. It's, we get this feeling that if that was to happen to us, we'd rather die. But when the psychologists did surveys of all sorts of folks that have had, crisis like that, and they actually they eventually handle it very well. It's just relearning, like you said. Was there a hardest thing to relearn for you?
I mean, it probably just goes back to being comfortable in myself. I mean, just that confidence, I mean, that's who we are. So without that, and that's who I've been for 22 years, and all of a sudden I have to kind of reshape this confidence and dig a little deeper than I've ever had to dig before. I mean, there's no doubt that's hard, especially on a 22-year-old guy that, one day you're walking, next day you're not. It's crazy, but you're spot on with that. When I get off the stage and I've shared my story with an audience, people come up all the time and they say, there's no way I could do what you do. I couldn't do it. I would just crawl into a ball and go away. No, you wouldn't. You would probably fight like I did and try to make the best of the situation. And so, again, it goes back to, we don't know how we would respond until it happens. That's why it's important to be the best version of ourselves we can be today to bounce back from life.
When you just said when you get these people that come to you after stage, have you ever heard the term "I'm paralyzed by fear"? And especially the last couple of years, people go, this happened to me and I couldn't move and I'm paralyzed and I just sit in my room and stare at the wall all day long. they're not physically paralyzed, but they're paralyzed mentally. Have you ever, what kind of advice, can you give with that? Because they use a word that to you has a very personal meaning and a different meaning, but they still use that same word. And I think people throw words around a lot of time. How do you handle people that go on paralyzed by fear?
If I could give them any advice, I would say just slow everything down, like go back to the basics. I get it, as a speaker and getting on stage in front of thousands of people. When I was teaching and coaching, when I graduated from college, I had a hard time getting in front of my class to teach. I didn't like to speak in front of people. So when I finally made the jump as a motivational speaker, that was a big change for me. And then you get that fear, it's not a physical fear, but inside your body's saying, oh, no, we can't do this. I think it's important just to slow down a little bit, kind of break things down, go back to the basics, that foundation of who you are, and go forward.
What's your typical day like these days? What do you do?
Get up in the morning, drink my Spark, which is an advocate product. I've been drinking Spark since I was in high school, so I've got to have my Spark or I'm not the same person. Drink my Spark, I usually get on the computer, return some emails and do some work. And then some point in the afternoon, which I've been going here in the mornings here lately, and I'm not much of a morning guy, but I've been getting my workouts in the morning, but try to get at least something in during the day. And honestly, if I'm not speaking, I'm probably out in the woods hunting or on the water fishing, and that's just what I enjoy doing. So that's kind of a typical day for me if I'm not on the road.
So you were an athlete in high school, yes?
I was.
You had that, you seem to still have that athlete mentality. That helps for you?
Oh, absolutely. Those lessons that you learn on the football field of team, of, you're failing and that's okay, but you got to push through and to conquer. And that describes my life the past 17 years. When you're paralyzed and put into a wheelchair, you are literally at ground zero and you have a conscious choice that you have to make. And that is to fight or give up. And it goes back to those principles that you learn on a football field or on a baseball field. And it's like being your own coach in your head.
So here's something that you probably have to dig deep for, and that is the driver of that cement truck. Any commentary from him? Do you forgive him? Do you want to kill him? What were your transition of emotions like?
I get that question a lot, and I've never been bitter towards him. Thankfully, I really truly have not. What was he doing? I don't know. That's the $1 million question. We went through litigation, went through everything, and we sit in a mediation room in the same room, and he came in, and it was the perfect opportunity for him to say, "I'm sorry. Here's what I was doing. I hate your guts," something. But he did not even look at me, didn't acknowledge him. And I get his lawyer probably told him, hey, don't say a word, just go in. But I know myself as a human being, I would have to at least give a head nod, something for him to say, hey, man, I'm sorry. But, thankfully, I've really never been bitter. I'm a strong person that believes everything does happen for a reason. Would I like to know what he was doing that day? What had him distracted? Absolutely. But I've never been bitter, and I am thankful for that. And maybe I should be the one to reach out to him. He probably thinks that I hate his guts, So,
yeah. Have you? Is there something in your history that allowed you to be able to be that way? Because that's hard for a lot of people to be that way, to be forgiving or to be okay. Just
honestly, I think there was so much going on in that time. I really didn't give it a whole lot of thought, and it wasn't until several years after the fact that I could look back and say, I wonder what he was doing that caused this. I'm fighting for my life, and so it took some time. I really didn't even think about that. I had so much support and family around me that we tried to keep everything positive, try to keep it upbeat, and try to keep pushing forward. But hopefully he's out there and he knows, hey, I'm not bitter. I don't hold anything against you. But I don't know.
Do you talk about this almost like it's an unclosed door. Do you see yourself in the future reaching out to him and to have that conversation with him to close that door?
I'd be open to that for sure. Yeah, I'd be open to that. And like I said, I mean, maybe I need to be the bigger person and reach out to him. And he probably has absolutely no idea how I think about him or the situation or what. And he probably doesn't even know what I'm doing these days. But, maybe I do need to be the bigger person and reach out to him and try to close that gap.
I mean, you never know that accident could have caused severe mental, effect on him, and he didn't know how to handle it. And I think there's a lot of people out there that there's two sides to every coin, and that forgiveness is such a powerful tool on both sides. And I just didn't know if that is something that's even crossed your mind yet, being on one side of that coin.
Yeah, I have not done it. I had a student at a school ask me, "Have you ever reached out to him?" And it wasn't until then that I even thought about that. I thought, well, that's his responsibility to reach out to me. And you really start thinking about it. And again, maybe I just need to be the bigger person and reach out to him, because you don't know what he's going through. You don't know how this whole event has affected him and his mental state. I mean, I don't know that. So
strangely enough, and hypothetically speaking, he may be mentally and emotionally worse off than you, because you seem to have evolved and become more mature and look past things and look forward to a good life, whereas he probably can't shake it. I've known people that have unfortunately have gotten accidents, and there was homicide, vehicular homicide involved, and they will never drive again, and they carry this burden for the rest of the life. They start doing drugs and drinking and all that, and so you never know how he might be. You might heal the guy by calling him and forgiving him.
100%.
So flipping that a little bit, besides fishing, what gets you up in the morning?
My spark. No, I'm kidding. I'm joking. To be honest with you, I feel truly blessed to do what I do and to have a stage and share my story and have the opportunity to make a difference in somebody's life. And truly, that is what inspires me to keep doing what I'm doing. It's not always easy to get on stage in front of anybody, more or less high school students. I mean, what they're thinking, what they're saying, but there could be that one person that needs to hear what I have to say that day. And it's that opportunity to make a difference in somebody's life, or to set an example for them that could change their life, that just inspires me daily to get up and put myself in a chair and just go do life out of it.
Well, you have changed a lot of people's lives. You've helped a lot of people, both just by being you. But I hear that you have a fascination or a love, let's just say, to like to have fun on your birthdays. And I hear there's a particular birthday that you had a lot of fun on, and that was your 40th. And is there a particular story you want to talk about that happened on your 40th birthday?
I figured this might come up. Well, this wasn't my 40th. I just turned 40 this past December, but this was Garrett George's 40th birthday.
Okay, and 40.
And he wasn't going, nobody was taking him out. We weren't doing anything, or he wasn't doing anything. And I'm like, no, man, let's go. So we went downtown Austin and we did it upright. And it's about 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning. And we can't get a hotel downtown to save our life. I mean, we can't. I mean, everything's booked. There's probably an event or something going on. And so Garrett said, well, let's just go back to my place. He lives in an apartment complex on the 3rd story. Okay. I'm in a wheelchair. There are obvious obstacles to overcome. So, but being the liquid courage guys we were at the time, let's go. I've got this. And so Garrett gets on all fours. I jump on his back. I've got my arms around his neck like this, and we're going up the stairs. Well, every step, my arms are slipping. But Garrett doesn't know that once my hands get here, I'm not going anywhere, right? My hands are strong. That's all I've got. So I'm going to hang on. Well, he thinks that I'm falling. And so he lays me down on the steps. Well, when he does, my leg gets pinned under him. And we broke my tibia and fibula in 2 places and tore my patellar tendon. So we went from having a good Friday night to I'm in surgery getting my leg put a rod in the middle of it Saturday morning. So that's the 40th birthday story.
Well, at least you weren't feeling any pain.
Yeah, exactly. Well, shoot, that was the funny thing. I went in and, I'm using the bathroom. I'm ready to go to bed. So I jump on the bed and I throw my leg up. My foot falls over to the side and I'm like, ooh, that's not right. So I look down and my leg, no kidding, it looked like a basketball. And I said, hey, Garrett. He's like, yeah. I was like, hey, man, come look at this. He comes in, he goes, oh my gosh. I was like, we probably need to go to the hospital. Well, we did. But the funniest
How did
part,
you get back down the stairs?
we called one of his buddies, Hunter Phillips, and Hunter drove over there at 3 o'clock in the morning, and the two guys carried me down. So we're in the emergency room, and the doctor comes in, and, they expect me to be in pain, which I'm not in any because I can't feel my leg. And so they start trying to reset this thing. So I'm grabbing the headboard of the bed, and they're pulling on this thing. And I crack a joke. I said, yeah, I probably shouldn't have done those calf raises last week. And they did not know whether to laugh, cry, or what. But it's probably the funniest part of that whole story.
I thought another funny part was when Garrett had to face your parents and tell me that he broke your leg.
Yeah. My parents made the trip. We gave them a call, and they made the trip from Fort Worth and came down. And I think mom or dad, one of them said, well, this doesn't happen if you're sitting on a couch. So, they know we just get out and enjoy life and things happen. So,
well, what's funny, the irony is when I said that you didn't feel any pain, I actually forgot or didn't think about the paralysis part, but the under the influence of drinking that you didn't feel anything.
Yeah, that's twofold, really. Yeah.
Yeah. So you had double painkillers there. All right, that's good. Hey, we got a rapid fire questions for you, and well, like I warn every person that we interview, we always get hung up on it. So don't get don't worry about if we start elaborating on any of the answers to the questions because sometimes they're really super interesting. But are you ready?
I'm
for
ready.
Question number 1. All right, here we go. Simple. Who inspires you?
My parents inspired me from day one.
Great.
So we lost my dad almost 3 years ago, and he was hands down my best friend. We talked every night at 9 o'clock. So my parents are definitely my inspiration.
It's great to hear. Question number 2, and listen to it clearly and to the end. What is the craziest thing you have ever done naked?
Craziest thing I've ever done naked is tore my bicep tendon off the bone.
How would you do that?
This happened in 2018. We're in Florida. We went fishing, offshore fishing. I wish I had a cooler story, but gosh dang. We went fishing, came back. I'm in the shower, and we're in like a VRBO or a vacation rental type place. And my mom had got this shower chair, and it's in a stand-up shower. Well, the bar of the shower is kind of at an angle, right? So it wasn't flat; it was at an angle. And I transfer over and I get my shower done, but then I got to get back in my chair, and I'm like, golly, this is a big transfer. And I knew it was, but I put my left arm on the bar of the shower and my right hand on my chair, and I made the transfer. And when I did, I heard tear pop. I looked down and my biceps rolled up on my shoulder.
Oh,
yeah.
Jeez.
So that's the craziest thing that's happened while I was naked. I wish it was
naked.
Cool.
No,
I thought you'd have some Garrett story, jumping from some car, doing stuff.
No, I can't touch it. I can't match his stories. Hanging onto the windshield wiper, no.
Exactly. Oh my gosh. Well, let me ask you, Tyson. People with disabilities sometimes they use humor as practical jokes and a way to cope. What is one of your favorite practical jokes that you played on that you've played on somebody? Something that maybe still makes you laugh.
The only reason I'm in this wheelchair is for the parking. That's probably one of the best ones that I got. I mean, it's easy to get people these days. I mean, you can be in a grocery store and, they're kind of giving you a side eye. They don't want you to know that they're looking at you, but they're looking at you. And so you can get, right up on where your basket's almost made, you can go boom, or just something that, it just throws everybody into a tizzy. But yeah, there's a ton of pranks that you can do for sure. But hey, you can't laugh at yourself. Who can you laugh at?
That's right.
What's one of the best practical jokes that's been played on you?
Right after I got put into a wheelchair, they asked me to be a counselor at a wheelchair sports camp called Camp Extreme. And so I didn't know this, but there's a thing called a fat boy. And what happens is I was sitting out on, I think we were on tennis courts, but it was some type of court. And these guys come up behind me and they lift up my wheelchair and they pop the wheels off and set me down on the axle of my chair. Well, you can't go anywhere, right? So I got fat boy. I was sitting on a court looking around with no back wheels, couldn't go anywhere. So that's probably not probably, that is the biggest joke that was played on me.
Oh my God. A fat boy. All right. I got to remember that one. Well, you obviously keep in shape. What is your best exercise for you that you do to stay physically healthy and in shape?
Yeah, I mean, I do a lot of pushing every day. I mean, that's what I've got. So I feel like I kind of get that in. Weight training's always been a big part of my life, being an athlete. In the last, I guess, few months, my girlfriend's got me into going to Orange Theory, which is treadmills and rowers and weights. Clearly, I don't need a treadmill. So I stay on the weight floor the whole time. But it's introduced me into bands, medicine balls, weights, and I feel like I'm activating those smaller muscles that I really wasn't hitting when I was just doing, dumbbells and big weights. So it's a lot of resistance training these days. I mean, I don't care about getting big and bulky, but I got to push this chair, right? I had a shoulder injury in college. I never got it fixed. And so now I'm just trying to keep that sucker strong, because if I don't stay up on the weights, it'll tell me pretty quick, hey, get your butt back in the weight room. Yeah.
Is there something that you've learned from being in the wheelchair, something that having that experience, like a lesson or something that you were taught?
Probably going back to my high school days of just the biggest lesson is life's going to happen. You're going to have adversity, right? And it's a choice in how you respond to that. This was a big choice, and I get that. But all those little lessons of growing up, and I mean, that shaped me to who I was, to where I could make the decision. I can't change what happened to me. All I can do is then make the best of it, and that's what I try to do.
Good.
Fair enough. So you talk a lot. Something that's close to your heart is distracted driving,
Correct.
and distractions can come in many forms. And there's even movies or TV shows that squirrel, and people just get distracted really easily. What are some simple exercises that you feel or that you teach that can curb these distractions? Whether it's driving, whether it's trying to stay focused to get a paper done, whether it's trying to get your workout done when you don't want to do it. I mean, it's easy to talk about things, but what's a great way that you've learned to keep that distraction and get down?
While I'm driving, or just
anything? But yeah, let's talk about driving, which is close to you. But then, what are some skills that people that get simply easily distracted? We want to medicate everybody that's ADD or ADHD, and sometimes it's just keeping the brain active, and we've been so inactive the last 2 years and people have gotten addicted even more to devices, and I think they're even more distracted. So what are some things you teach and talk about when it comes to distraction?
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to cars and driving, I mean, the biggest thing, I mean, there's apps you can put on your phone that will mute your phone, but I mean, our cell phones, we see it everywhere. I mean, if we drive 30 minutes down the road, you're going to see somebody on their phone. That's just the way it is, So finding a way to put that phone away, especially behind the wheel, I mean, that is a big part of it. And that's a conscious decision you make. That's the most frustrating part of this whole thing with distracted driving. It's 100% preventable. It's preventable. It doesn't have to happen. People are making choices that put themselves or other people at risk. And relating this to life, how do you avoid those distractions or things to overcome? when you said that and you're asking me that question, goal jumped in my head. If you have a goal, then you know what you're working towards. You know what you need to do to get to that goal. And, I don't want to go to the weight room today. Well, are you going to reach your goal and get closer to your goal if you don't go or if you go? Having that goal and something physical to see shapes what you need to do between now and whenever you get there.
Well, I tell you, man, you're obviously a gifted speaker. You've got speaking engagements all around the country. Your goal or intention is to inspire our youth into realizing that some of the shit that they think about ain't so bad and they can overcome it. But I love when somebody has like a mantra or just like a one word or a couple words. Yours seems to be attitude, determination, and grit. Can you share? I love the word grit. What does that mean to you?
I mean, I think that's the most inner part of who you are. When your body's telling you stop, quit, give up, no more, I can't do this. It's that grit inside of you that's going to help you overcome that. I don't running marathons and stuff. Do y'all remember Team Hoyts? Rick and Dick Hoyt?
Of course. I was thinking about them this morning. Oh my God.
Yeah. I mean, I have a video that I'll show at certain times on stage, probably once or twice a year, but it's their story. And you think about when they're crossing the finish line of the Boston Marathon, you look in front at Rick Hoyt. What's he doing? He's enjoying it. He's swinging his hands. He's eating it up. He's loving every second of it. But if you look behind him, you see his dad, Dick Hoyt. And what do you see? You see defeat, failure. I'm tired. I can't go. It's that grit inside of him that makes him cross the finish line, but it also helps Rick Hoyt cross the finish line. Because without his grit, neither one of them are going to go, right? So that grit that you talk about, it's that most inner part of us that inspires us to do what we do and to reach our goals.
Potent. I know that Dr. Terry is thinking about one of our guests who happens to be one of my patients, Jim Saya. That is the current Dick Hoyt. He's got a son who has cerebral palsy. And he saw the same thing that Dick saw, and that was that his kid got excited being part of something big, a race, an Ironman, one of those tough mudders or whatever event he takes and carries his son, drags his son, pulls his son, pushes his son through. So hearing that is just the ultimate grit. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And, sacrificing yourself for something bigger. And I absolutely love that story. Thanks for bringing that up. And you share that with your audience sometimes, huh?
Yeah, sometimes I do. I mean, in the right setting, I will, especially like in a corporate world or with adults, they tend to bond to that a little easier than students will. But yeah, I mean, it exemplifies the word team better than anything I could ever say. I mean, I just shut up and turn on a video and they can watch that. And, it's just an incredible display of courage on both of their part, really. So it's an incredible story.
I'm curious. You're on stage, you're either just starting doing this or you've got years into it and you're a seasoned speaker and in front of all sorts of audiences. Is there a time that you felt most exhilarated or, you moved the audience in a manner that you could just feel the energy? Is there a time?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, when you finish a presentation, and I have a story that I share about Coach Halsey, my high school baseball coach, and he gave us a little laminated card after practice one day, and I kept it in my wallet, and it's the only thing that survived my crash. And on the back of that card, it says, dear God, help me be a good sport in this game of life. I don't ask for an easy place in line up. Put me anywhere you need me. But I always close out my presentations with that story. And I'll share that with you guys. I'll email it to you so you can have the full card and what it says. But when I share that and I close it out, I'm Tyson Dever, y'all go be different. When they jump to their feet and they're giving you a standing ovation, man, there's nothing like it, right? It's like they're carrying you out, like on this above their head, like carrying you all the way out of the building. But it's something that I said that resonated with them, and I'm a firm believer. I'm not a good speaker, but the good Lord talks through me. And, he gave me some words to say that, they needed to hear. And it's just confirmation that I'm doing what I was put on this earth to do, when you can help somebody realize something that they needed in their life. So, and I know that sounds cliche, and I'm a motivational speaker and I'm supposed to say that, but man, it's true. It really is. It's, that's what inspires me. I mean, it's that, again, that opportunity to make a difference in somebody's life.
Just on that note, making a difference in somebody else's life, you had to have, a speech is over, you go home, whether it's weeks, months, even a year goes by, you've had to have gotten a letter or an email or something, that a story that somebody goes, because of your talk, this happened.
Yeah.
Can you share us a couple, one or two that
Sure.
stand out in your mind?
Yeah, I've got hundreds of them. I mean, kids in this day and age, and people in particular, because I don't just speak to kids, I speak to, a wide range of people. But a lot of what I do is going into schools talking with students. So they're not going to come up afterwards and tell you, something, their story or something going on in their life. Some will, but most won't. But with social media these days, they'll send you a Facebook message or a message on Instagram or whatever. And this one particular time, this happened right when I started speaking. I was speaking in Hico, Texas. And after my presentation, I went home and, I'm feeling pretty good about how everything went and all that. And then this girl, sends me a message on Facebook. And she said, look, I just got to tell you, I really enjoyed your presentation. I am an everyday drug user. My friends and I, every day after school, we shoot up. And she said, your presentation has really helped me. In the week since your presentation, I've stopped using drugs and I've been picking up trash on the highway.
Oh.
What? What? Picking up trash on the highway? Like, nobody asked her to do that, And I don't know if she ever went back to using drugs, but for 1 second, she stopped what she was doing to recurve her life, to make a few different steps. It made her take a step back and kind of reevaluate things. And man, that right there is a prime example of what inspires me. I mean, my story, for some reason, helped her take a step back. And I mean, that's one of 100, but that's a pretty powerful one for sure.
That is,
yeah. What would be another one? Let's, we use a metaphor that everybody in some form is stuck in a chair. Some are mental, some are physical. What is another story of somebody that was, I mean, that's a pretty good one, but stuck in a chair, especially the last couple of years, that your story kind of woke them up?
Yeah, I mean, I actually have a presentation that is exactly that, and it's titled, What is Your Wheelchair? We all have something that threatens to hold us back, right? So what is your wheelchair? What's your obstacle to overcome? I guess it's been about 2 years ago. I was speaking at a school in East Texas, and a girl sent me an email, and she was literally minutes away from suicide. I mean, she was done. She had a leg injury. She was a big athlete. She couldn't participate. And she lost her identity. She lost who she was. And for whatever reason, once again, my story just gave her a little bit of hope. And of course, I had to reach out to some of the administrators, there at the school, because you just never know. But that's one that happened just a couple years ago. And, I don't know whatever happened. But again, for a moment in time, she took a step back and reconsidered what she was planning on doing. And, just further proof that doing what God put me or left me on this earth to do, because he could have taken me in 2005. There's no doubt about it. I mean, you guys have seen the pictures. So,
yeah.
Just fortunate.
That's a great message. That's a great message because those are the ones you hear from. Imagine the ones that you don't get that chance to hear from, that you may have saved them,
For sure.
And I know that you're interesting. You've become a healer and probably don't even realize it. You heal with words, and Terry and I, we have to use our hands and be all physical and hurt our back and shoulders. And now you have the power of vocabulary and an ability to inspire. And that's the beauty of having been an athlete and transitioning into something more powerful.
And on the flip side, I probably get more out of it than audiences do. I mean, it's therapy for me, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I get up and share my story. I mean, it's twofold, hopefully it helps them, but I know dang well it helps me as well.
I mean, don't you find when you're a speaker that if you're talking about health, mental and physical, it holds you also accountable, because you can't let yourself go. And when you go in that deep, dark pit, because we all do, whether, you're physical or whatever, but if you have to speak about being positive, you can't go back into that pit. You have to pull yourself out. Otherwise you're fake, and people will pick that up in a heartbeat. So,
absolutely. Yeah. My dad was going through chemotherapy a couple years ago before we lost him. I remember days where he would sit on the back porch with his head in his hands, just fighting off the nausea and just feeling like crap every day. And we had a saying, and it was, it's okay to get down, but don't stay there. And that's so true. I mean, we're all going to have times where we get down, just like you said. But the most important thing is don't stay there. Fight out of it. Find a way, find something that pulls you out of it.
I got two probably final questions, unless Terry does. Sorry. And that was, one is, have you ever walked up to the stage and maybe felt like what we refer to as imposter's syndrome, like you feel like crap and you're angry, or you just don't feel, but then you start talking and then it turns around for you? Have you been there?
Oh, for sure. I mean, being a speaker, it can be a grind. You're traveling a lot, you're on stage, you're kind of talking about the same thing over and over, and you're like, just here's another one. And then you get on stage and you lock eyes with somebody in the audience, or you get some feedback from them that, I've got to show up today. When I speak to teachers, one of the things I tell them is, for some of your students, the best part of their day is seeing your face. What an opportunity you have to make a difference. That's my opportunity, is to get on stage. I've got to show up every time I do that, because there may be some guys in the back or whoever not paying attention on their phones, whatever. And that'll get me, right? As the old coach in me, I was a coach for 2 years. I want to call them out. Hey, y'all pay attention. Y'all listen. Y'all need this. But I can't do that. I got to focus on the ones who are paying attention. And, in an audience of 100, if you have one, it's all worth it.
Yeah. Question number two is, or part two to that is, a goal or a dream that where you want to take this yourself, the presentations, the programs. What are you looking to do in the future here?
I just want to keep growing this. I think the more I get out there and share my story, I wrote a book a couple years ago. It's out. Trauma is a Team Sport: How to Turn Tragedy into Goal-Crushing Motivation. Here it is. Actually, got a copy right here.
Oh yes,
look at that.
We'll put a link on that.
Yeah, I will. I'll send you guys a copy.
Please do.
But it's, getting out there. A lot of what I do is in Texas because it's such a big state, and I've been doing this since 2009. And so, a lot of it keeps me here. But if I can branch out more into like a national setting and, some bigger stages, I mean, that's where you want to be. I mean, the Zig Ziglars of the world. And I mean, that's where you strive to be, And so I don't ever want to become complacent. That's kind of hard for a motivational speaker to say, right? But you don't want to become complacent. I want to keep pushing this and trying to be the best that I could be and just reach that many more people. I mean, who knows who's out there that might need to hear my story.
Oh, that's right. All right. Well, I can't be outdone by Spencer, so I have two questions. So my one question is, if you were to be in front of an audience and instead of being a bunch of students from high school or college and you're trying to be a motivational speaker, what would you teach doctors and therapists of how to handle people that are in a chair?
Yeah, I've had a lot of doctors and nurses and, healthcare workers in my day going through rehab and all that. And the one thing, there's only a handful that I've followed and kept up with afterwards. And you know what the one common denominator is? They cared. They took the time to show me that they cared. You go through all this schooling, all this practice for your skill, for what you do, when really just taking a little bit of time and showing that you genuinely care about a person is hands down probably the most impactful thing that I had when I was going through rehab and all that, which is crazy to think, but it's something as small but as big as just caring for the person, showing that you care.
Absolutely agree. 110%.
In fact, I think Spencer and I have some avenues that I think we need to get in front of some doctors, and I think they need to hear that, because it's sad that a lot of people get focused on volume or finances or business, and they forget that they're blessed to work with humans and make them feel better. So thank you for that. Part 2, or second question, fishing. Why do you like fishing, and what does fishing bring to you?
Fish.
I've always been a big fisherman, but
Shut up.
I have been. But the thing now is it's still a level playing field, right? You don't fish with your feet. So I can get on the boat, jump in my wheelchair, grab the rod and reel. It's game on, right? If I'm fishing a tournament, it's pretty much a level playing field. But it's just you got to have something that recharges your batteries. And that is hunting and fishing is most definitely that for me. It's my escape. It's the time you get away from life, quote unquote, and just kind of recharge yourself. And so I didn't say I was a good fisherman, but I did say I was a fisherman. So I like to fish and I like to hunt.
So the reason I was asking that question, for those non-Texans listening, what is it about the fishing that lights you up, that makes that you like? What is it? Yes, I fished before, but for the person that's been in the city that has never been a fisherman yet, all right, my partner, what is the draw to fishing that just lights you up? So explain fishing to the non-fisherman.
It's figuring them out. Right? They could be at all certain depths. You got to find out what bait to throw. I mean, it's figuring out what they want, how they want it, and when they want it, and making all that come together. You just don't go out and throw out a lure and catch fish on a consistent basis, right? Some people get lucky and first catch a 5-pound bass or whatever, but it's figuring them out. And it's just fun. Like, get out there and, you're outside and nature and, so for me, it's just figuring them out and trying to do that on a consistent basis. I mean, that's fishing.
So it's it's almost like the mental game, if you really think about it, fish have this small brain, yet they outsmart us with big brains. And so you're trying to figure out this ecosystem, trying to figure out how this fish, and then the reward is the fight on the end of the line. But is it the game that entices you, being an athlete? Is it in that mentality?
I think so, and I think it's the element of surprise too. You may catch something, you may not. You could be doing everything right. You're in the right spot, throwing the right bait. They just may not be hungry at that point in time. So timing works out too. So it all has to come together to have a successful day on the water.
Well, that sounds like my early dating life. I may have the right bait and the right thing, but I still couldn't catch a damn thing.
It's because they have a different brain than we do. I get, just to really sum that up too, is that it's nice to have a passion for something, a hobby that will distract you, relax you, and, you can get a thrill from as well. If you catch fish, that is. Fish figure me out. They don't know. So now to close it up, Tyson, if you were to speak to a newly disabled person, and what would you tell to them? What would you tell to their caregivers to give them, the strength to overcome what their brain is saying?
I think everybody will get there in their own time. I get asked a lot to speak to people who have recently injured. And they say, hey, will you go talk to, you got such a good attitude, will you talk to this person? My answer is always no. And here's why. Yes, I will talk to them, but when they're ready, when they want to talk to me, I will. Because if not, we're wasting our time, right? There was a point in time when I was in rehab in Houston, and there was guys going around. Well, I didn't want to talk to them because I wasn't a wheelchair guy. I was a guy placed into a wheelchair. And in my mind, there was a difference. Well, you quickly get over that. But I didn't want to be associated with wheelchair world yet. But there came a point in time soon after where I was like, hey, that's ignorant on my part, right? Like that's not necessarily the case. So my advice to them is make the best of what you can. Everybody's different. Physically, mentally, everything. And the hope is that they're going to find their way. And it may be next week. It could be 10 years from now. You can't make them find this. It's something that they're going to have to find themselves. And it's difficult at times, because you want to jump in, you want to help them, you want to fix things. And that's not how it works. Them personally are going to be the ones to better themselves and make the best of whatever situation they have.
So true. That is true. I appreciate it. Tyson, that was really, I love these kind of conversations, to really get into the thought process of, different scenarios, ones that are fortunate, one that are unfortunate, because we always get something out of it. And I hope the audience, listeners feel the same way. Tyson, you're fantastic, man. Really good stuff.
I mean, what I get out of it, we're all human. Doesn't matter. And we all have a chair. And it's, just, I think what I loved about the whole thing was at the end of telling doctors, just treat us like, just be nice, and treat us like humans. And we're all going through something. And so thank you for being out there. And, don't take this the wrong way, but I think that cement truck driver made you a better person. I mean, I think you're healing so many people right now with your words and your stories and your laughter. I mean, we had on Garrett George, and you changed Garrett's life by just sitting next to him in a plane. And when he talks about you, he gets choked up. And I know you guys drink beer together. He breaks your legs and all that kind of stuff. But you changed his life, and now look what he's doing with his life. I mean, he's impacting people. And I hate to tell you, but that's because I think a lot of it, that's because of you. And, and he changed our life. And so you've been blessed, and your second chance of life is way more powerful than I think a lot of people's first chance of life and second chance and third chance. So thank you for that.
Yeah, I agree 100%. It goes back to that opportunity, that we have every day to make a difference in somebody's life. And it's corny, it's cliche. I get that. I know it, but it's so true. I mean, you can go through a drive-through and buy somebody's meal behind you. And as you pull away and they tell them, hey, your meal's been paid for, you're going to see a smile on their face, right? Such a small gesture can make such a huge impact in somebody's life. The whole Garrett George story, I mean, what started out as just a simple conversation on an airplane has turned into so much more than that. I mean, he has done just incredibly good things for a lot of people. But it goes back to that opportunity to make a difference in somebody's life. And, that's got to be what inspires us daily to get up and go.
Well,
great
you
stuff,
did a good job. And, on the Garrett George story, you brought home a championship. So,
We did. Yeah. We brought the trophy from Vegas back home to Texas. So it was a successful trip for sure.
Well, thank you for your time. Thank you for everything you've done for all humanity. We got to get you out of Texas and get you across the nation because people
Let's
need
do
to
it.
hear this, and people need to, not only kids, but I mean, I have friends, and Lance actually has a friend in the chair, and so your story is powerful, and I love the technology. Technology is just advancing so quick that but the mental stuff is we're still human. So
Yeah, for sure. I would love the opportunity for sure.
well, thank you for being a part of our show, and we hope that everything in the future is fantastic for you.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate it, guys.
Thanks, Tyson.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of the Crackin Backs Podcast. We hope you enjoyed, and make sure you follow our Instagram at Crackin Backs Podcast. Catch new episodes every Monday. See you next time.